Hello and welcome to Conspiracy Boulder.
You're not a boulder, you're a rock!
Welcome to another edition of Conspiracy Boulder News. Today we look at the extraordinarily strange case of the U.S. Department of Justice sending millions of dollars to victims of certain specially selected crimes. Under the Crime Victim Assistance Formula Grant Program, families of victims of exclusive crimes are paid out certain sums of money. And the sums are staggering. The Department of Justice, through its Office for Victims of Crime, or the OVC for short, said in one of its press releases that, quote, OVC is committed to promoting justice and healing for all victims of crime, end quote. And that, quote, the physical, emotional and financial impact of such crimes can be devastating, leaving victims and emergency personnel in urgent need of services to reduce trauma and restore a sense of normalcy to their lives. This award will aid victims in their recovery and participation in the criminal justice process, end quote. Here are some examples. The OCV provided $3 million during America's worst mass shooting, at Virginia Tech, where 32 people were killed and another 23 were injured, saying that the total number of victims of the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting was over 1,500. Counting the dead, the injured, the responders, people in the neighborhood, and others. The OCV granted $2.9 million to help the providers of services to the victims. The providers of services to the families of the 27 victims of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting received an initial $1.5 million, and then additional funds bringing that total up to a reported $14.3 million. The providers of services to the families of the 286 victims of the Boston Marathon bombing received a reported $8.3 million. An initial total of $29.4 million, which the Justice Department spokesman said was fast-tracked by the Obama administration, was sent to help the families of the 9 deceased victims of the South Carolina church shooting. Per family, that's a lot more than the 9/11 victims received. According to CNN, the average federal government payout that families of deceased victims of the 9/11 terror attack received was just over $2 million per family. Think about it. Horrible events. Tragic events. Heartbreaking events. Followed by enormous sums of money moving around. The pattern is both staggering and disturbing. And the amounts are apparently on the increase. So, Conspiracy Boulder News viewers, we ask you to think about the motives behind the tragedies. Think about it. And while you're thinking, ask yourself, how much money did the federal government send to help you, your family, or your friends when you, or they, were victims of serious crime? My acquaintance was shot in the head during a robbery. His family received nothing from the government. Was his shooting not front page enough? Maybe it was because only he was shot that night, and not a dozen other people. Hey, getting shot in the head is getting shot in the head. Death is death. How does one decide which people receive cash awards and which don't? How does one decide that only groups of victims get enormous financial aid, and victims of individual crime are left to languish? How does that work? If you are an individual victim, too bad. Better hope, if worst comes to worst, that you're part of a group of victims. Really? How sickening. Think about it. 35 victims of crime from 35 different incidents don't warrant the same treatment as 35 victims in the same location. Why is that? Think about it. We, the American taxpayers, are paying for these programs. Do they make sense? Think about it. Conspiracy Boulder News will return after this break.